Good like Tuesday, early Wednesday meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at that Doppler perspective. Not seeing any sound around. We did have some though on that Tuesday though, as we were looking there during the daytime hours, during the morning hours as well. It was something that we needed. We didn't get enough of though. There's still a burn being in Bradford County, some other spots in the region. So let's be mindful of that. We're expecting more rain though as we get later into the week toward the weekend. So hopefully that'll be something that we can kind of see around here that'll be a positive and, help us to, get a little bit closer. They won't completely clear it out, but maybe help the drought improve, a little bit where it's not as, crazy in terms of those overall concerning numbers here. So let me go ahead and say those last 12 hours in terms of those rainfall totals, you see the last 12 hours will be more toward the east, but you see some of this in Bradford County and the darker greens over a tenth of an inch. Still not enough, but it is better than nothing here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. So that's just stuff we're keeping an eye on here in toward the overall view and toward the overall picture. I know we had a tornado warning in Gulf County on that Tuesday morning. Nothing in our coverage area though. Gulf County's over out in here around Port St. Joe's, where we had some indications of rotation within the Doppler algorithms there, but it didn't move into our area with enough to prompt a warning any further than in Gulf County there. So, of course, we cover 62 counties here as we look and as we track things, as we monitor things here across our zones. We're in Bradford, but we'll always keep an eye on the overall situation here across the region. It's always about protecting you, your friends, your family. We would have been on if we had a tornado warning storm moving into Franklin / Liberty counties this morning or any of the other counties. But that area of rotation did weaken there. That was, just in effect for a portion of Gulf County around 7 o'clock Eastern time this morning. But we're always getting you the latest on the different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, and the website, clarida.com. We're breaking in as needed if there's severe coverage, that's warranted. We're also doing the late Tuesday, late Thursday updates generally, late Thursday, early Friday, late Tuesday, early Wednesday. Be back late Thursday, early Friday. Let's need to pop back in earlier, but again, watching things and tracking them here. I know it's been an interesting pattern up north here lately. I know we have some of this cool air coming on in, not, anything too crazy, just round of it, but up toward the central part of the country here as we look toward like the Midwest. They've had some snows up toward St. Louis, a couple of them. Saturday morning, about half foot in some spots, and then Monday morning, and especially getting into the afternoon as well, it kind of caught folks off guard there. It was not really anticipated in the modeling, and just all of a sudden, started disrupting plans, and there could be even more snow as we look ahead late Wednesday. We'll see. Maybe not as much as the other two, but still, probably won't be as much as the other two, but the last round on that Monday wasn't supposed to be too much either, and it became a big problem. Some of those roads apparently weren't pre-treated up there, so it's, some folks have more familiarity up there with winter weather traveling than down here, but most folks would. But the thing about it is they were in a situation there where we ended up having just the overall pattern here be one where, without that pre-treatment, it made things almost as slick as our area if we would have had winter weather. Not quite as slick, but let's just see some winter weather toward the Denver area there in Colorado. Quite a few indications of snow reports at the different airports and meet our sites there. You kind of get the idea. A lot of it up the indoor parts of Wisconsin right now there on Green Bay. They're getting snow at this hour, 1:26 a.m. Central, 2:26 a.m. Eastern time. That is how we're looking at things. And you still see some of that lingering action there in the Northeast around Boston there. So, and Portland, Maine. So that's kind of the storyline. Winter weather kind of coming in a little bit earlier than we generally would anticipate here in some of these areas. With this many rounds, this cold, it's going to get colder than this even. You see some of these areas of, below zero temperature activity. That's just into Canada. In North Dakota right now, you zoom in real tight and look at this. We're getting there. Some of these numbers, I have to look real close, but you see 1 degree there right now around one of these different sites here. You see Langdon there in North Dakota, 3 degrees right now. Is 14 in Grand Forks. So it looks like maybe a little bit of snow coming through there, but Yeah, this is some frigid air and the wind chill factor putting things below zero. That's what it feels like there in like Langdon and Grand Forks and some of these other areas. It is coming in quick. Not even Christmas. I mean, just past Thanksgiving, we're already seeing negative wind chills. Minot, Williston, there, North Dakota, that is. Not Williston locally, but Williston, North Dakota. Definitely seeing that colder air mass coming in. You know, the polar vortex per se going to get a little bit further south here as we're looking and as we're tracking things, the overall meteorology. So early on, I mean, we're still a few weeks out from Christmas and already having this cold of air. I mean, these are your air temperatures. There's your wind chills. I mean, it feels like, the single digits here right now in parts of Indiana, Illinois, Michigan there, Wisconsin, of course. So seeing some of those readings there as well. Ohio, Northwest Ohio there around Toledo, give or take. Getting some of those single digit wind chill values. So it is some chilly air here in the country taking on over a little bit earlier. I mean, even locally we have some wind chills because we have some of that wind. We had quite a bit of wind on Tuesday, not as much rain as we really could have had. We wish we would have had. We had the wind around. We did have the tornado warning out west, the west of the area, but we didn't have any severe warnings in our area, which we are thankful for, but we do need the rain. We are going to have some, though, in the forecast coming up. I know high school football, some of those games could have some issues Friday night. Speaking of high school football, though, of course, we talk about Bradford High School. The Tornadoes under a lot. They came up a little bit short this past Friday against Cocoa, but they tried really hard. 17-10 loss. Great season for Bradford, and hopefully, even better things ahead in 2026 for the Bradford County High School Tornadoes and that football team there. But as you see, the wind chills as we look up toward, areas there in southwest Georgia. I mean, we see some, it feels like in the 30s right now. The wind, the air cooling on down. Just got to be careful still. We still have that fire danger with some of these winds. We need the rain. We're expecting some. Probably still won't be enough, but looking at some dew points and temperatures, you see the wind coming from the northwest. There's some cool air coming in for sure as we track things. Now, let me go ahead and take some other information off. I'll go ahead and put on some of the longer range forecast models here. And let me kind of zoom in just a little bit here, a little bit more. Kind of frame this up for us. And then we're going to kind of put on the GFS and run this through here some. You can kind of see as we get into award. This is your Thursday here. You can see some of this moisture starting to come in. This is Thursday afternoon, South Georgia getting in. Some of this could be, as we're looking at some of these temperatures there, so that could be pretty cool rain. I mean, that could be 40s there with the rain in South Georgia. At those values, I'll say that one more time. That's some darker greens, 40s there with some rain. The wind not too bad, but yeah, that's something to see up there. Not wintry weather, but not wintry precip, but still cool rain. And as we get into Friday, more precip that could impact some high school games here as we look. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't know how much the severe chances will be yet. For the most part, maybe there'll be a window here or there, but I don't want to I'm not putting it on the 7-day yet because just like with the last round a week ago out, we weren't really able to nail things down. They're not having any severe warnings locally. Thought we'd have a few, honestly, here or there, but we've been lucky in that regard. But we need more rain. In a lot of ways, if you get more rain, you're gonna, end up having, not always, but sometimes in these patterns, the heavier downpours are going to be from thunderstorms that could produce severe weather. So it's definitely a give and take. It's not always like that, of course. I mean, you can get a low to come through here with a bunch of rain, and sometimes it can be too much. But as we look into Saturday here, you see it's not showing a whole bunch at first, but then we really start to see it pick up later in the day, Saturday. Some of those Christmas, plans here for the holiday parades. I know some of them are already being moved around in Georgia, I think, from what I've seen. We'll have to see, then who knows, next weekend might not be great either, but it's too early to know for sure on that. I know, more parades even next weekend, the 13th, but we can't go that far yet. But it's something that's not, set in stone if it's going to be good weather or not yet. So just keep checking back on that. But for the 6th here, you can see definitely some precip in southwest Georgia that comes on in there. And then it really picks up here later in the evening. And you'll see that as we get into early Sunday. This is, a 4 a.m. or so Sunday morning. You see that precip, and we're going to be watching that Jacksonville Jaguars game forecast here because if we have some of those lingering precip, some other models, Euro wasn't necessarily showing this. This is a GFS. I know that last year, the 18Z, I think it was, I was looking at, it was not sort as much, but if we get rain to linger around, that could be problematic for that huge game for the division lead. Jacksonville Jaguars hosting the Indianapolis Colts to decide who leads the NFC South here in early December on CBS Regional coverage. Iron Eagle, J.J. Watt, and Evan Washburn will be there for that contest at 1 o'clock. And people will also be watching the college football playoff selections at that time. And that is at noon there, and all of a sudden my rankings in a moment does differ significantly from what the committee came out with tonight here in some ways, some not so much, but of course today is the 2-year anniversary of FSU being left out of the playoff, and they haven't, my Noles haven't won a road game since. But as we go ahead and look here at things, you can kind of see the picture here as we kind of put the Doppler back, in to view for us because there's not much rain further south. You see some of the action there. I know a no bowl game it doesn't look like for FSU here in 2025 unless somebody drops out in the academic progress rate. I guess, theoretically get FSU into one, but probably not. Probably not going to have anybody drop out of one or anything like that. But, sometimes Noles can go to cold weather destinations, but it's not looking like the Noles are going to win a road game, until at least 2026. I haven't won one since 2023 there, sadly, for FSU football and FSU basketball. It hasn't gone too well the last 2 games either, really, huge margins in terms of loss there, in terms of the score differential that you wouldn't really expect after the way they started out so close against Florida. I know Florida barely lost at Duke tonight. They had a great effort, down 15, almost won that game there, but the Noles have now lost 2 straight by like 30, 40 points or so against Georgia and Texas A&M in basketball. Looks like it might end up being, unfortunately, a very tough year for Luke Louch and the squad. There's still time to turn things around, but started out so strong there, just a one close, 1-point loss to Florida, and now it's just kind of all avalanched. I hate to use that terminology as we look at the snow, but in terms of the metaphor there, that could kind of describe things there for the basketball team as well. And the women's basketball team has really struggled for FSU too, but women's soccer is in the last 4 there. That's gonna be out in Kansas City, the College Cup. It's not something we talk about too much on here, but I gotta have a positive. I can't be all negative here. And there is that one positive there with women's soccer. I mean, women's volleyball didn't even make the tournament for FSU. FAMU's team did. Congratulations to them. But I know FSU can be playing TCU Friday night there in Kansas City, Missouri, in the College Cup, the Final Four per se in soccer. So that's exciting for the Noles. As we look out there, I bet as we look at this overall pattern here, they're going to be fun to one up. As they look out there toward Western Missouri Friday night, it's going to be 25 for the low out there in Kansas City. Sometimes they play that, over the years. It seems like in Cary, North Carolina, something like that. But this year going out to the Midwest, and it's going to be a chilly one out there in Kansas City, Missouri. So just something to kind of keep in mind as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things in the overall picture. Just something to kind of talk about there, obviously. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking them. And the Gators, got to give them credit. They did, in football, they'll get the win over my Seminoles on Saturday. They finished 4-8. FSU finished 5-7. The Gators have a new coach now coming on in, Don Sumrall, who got the endorsements, it seems, of former head coaches Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. So looking like, the Gators could be turning things around here pretty quickly in 2026 here. I mean, they already proven to build, at least they were better this year than FSU. And we'll see what FSU can get going in 2026. It's going to be a long road to turn things around, it would seem, for the FSU football team there. And as of, the latest statements coming on out, the athletic director there at FSU, Michael Alford, saying they're going to stick with Mike Norvell for next season here, but they're going to make some different changes in the overall structural organization. I know the Gators made that change. They're adding former Jaguar general manager Dave Caldwell there to their structure. I know it didn't really go too well, honestly, in Jacksonville for the Jags when he was there, but you just never know. I mean, he was involved with Tom Coughlin was there, and You know, they had that one really good team there that went to the AFC title game, but also with the Eagles, that'll be something that the Gator fans will be watching, see if FSU kind of tries to, use a similar structure we see. But as we look ahead and as we track things here, let me go ahead and talk about another positive here in terms of, talk about women's soccer for FSU doing so well, kind of underdog there and getting all the way out there to the last four. A lot of years at a higher seed and doing it. Not this year, they were a little bit lower and getting out there all the way to the, College Cup there, the Final Four. So that's exciting out there in Kansas City. But let's go ahead and pull up something else again. Positive. Hurricane season's over here, folks. It officially has ended. Doesn't mean we can't rule out, we can't technically rule out anything outside of the 6 months. But, right now things are looking good. At one point, the models are showing some weird stuff popping up. Not really doing that right now. But if we had anything else before the end of December, Nestor, there, Olga, those are your last names we would reasonably expect to be used, because they're probably not going to get any of those used. But then in 2026 there, we'd start with the new names, even if we, before the official start of the season in June, we start with the A name next year, which I believe is Author. So, again, that's kind of the storyline there as we're looking at and we're tracking things here, as we kind of give you guys the very latest. Yeah, there's Author there and Bertha, it looks like, and Cristobal there. Those are your first three names for 2026. So that's what it's looking like there. I see Dolly's on the list there in 2026 as well. I know that's one people thought should have been retired there for South Texas years ago in the Rio Grande Valley. It had a big impact, but it didn't get retired there, and it's still on that list as we look toward 2026. So, okay, we'll be having that graphic together as we look ahead in the months to come, but not needing that here at this point yet. I mean, we had in 2016 a rogue storm way out in the Atlantic used the A name up, which was interesting there, in January. But, that's something that, doesn't happen too often. Tropical climatology, you can see here as we look now in December, much less chance of development, not zero, sure, but much less here out in the basin, which is great news, obviously. It's been a really nice, for Florida anyway, hurricane season. Other parts there of the country, not so much, in terms of, the remnants there of our second named storm this year, coming into Central Texas in the hill country. Sadly, with all that devastation there, with all the fatalities, with the flooding, it wasn't necessarily something that was, forecasted out ahead. I mean, weren't even really tracking the tropical name there for several days before it, impacted the Texas Hill Country, merged with another system and caused all that tragedy there with all that flooding on July 4th in the morning. And then you have, of course, you think about, internationally in Jamaica with all the tragedy as well from, what we just dealt with there. As we're looking and as we're tracking things, the list will definitely be getting retired there. Very May too, because of what it did to parts of it in Texas. We had Dora's Pacific name retired when it, had the impacts for the wildfire going back. And, Dora here in the Atlantic was a big deal in 64, but Pacific was still using that name, not anymore because of what happened with the wildfires, in Hawaii, spreading those, a couple years ago. The winds, the overall pattern there, pressure pattern. But Melissa's going to be retired for sure as we look on that list. As we see there, the drought monitor, this is something that's concerning here as we talk about wildfires. We talk about why. We don't want to have a pattern like that set up. Not that we would have it with a hurricane at this point in the next several months, probably not. But, if you had a low and a high there and then you had a bunch of wind in between, it's dry, that could be very problematic here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking them there. We do not want that, but we are going to have some rain. It doesn't look to be drought busting rain here, but it looks to be a helpful rain here as we look at things and as we track things. As we look ahead and toward the timelines, I'm seeing some of those models there as we're looking here. We do need that rain very, very, very badly. I know. Good luck to all those students there as we're looking ahead for final exam week, FSU and the like, UF there, all the different schools. Some folks graduating coming up soon. Some folks, still have a semester to go. Some pivotal exams there obviously coming on up as we're just watching things here across the area. Yes, you see Gainesville in there. They're in a moderate drought, so not as bad there. Alachua County. Speaking of Alachua County, and of course, the drought monitor is not a positive note. We do have a positive note to talk about, though, in terms of Gainesville as well, in terms of a retirement to tell everybody about here as we look there toward the different areas in Gainesville and the like. TV20 Chief Meteorologist Mike Potter's retiring Friday there after over 3 decades of serving North Central Florida. So congratulations to him. When I got here in 2000, 5 years old, he was one of them on the air. In the Gainesville TV market, Jacksonville TV market, there were many on the air as well. And he's the last one that is still on the air today, 25 years later. So that's, kind of bittersweet here. It's bittersweet here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. The last one that was on the air when I got here as a 5-year-old in 2000 to Radford County and, watching the Jacksonville and Gainesville TV stations. All the ones in Jacksonville with Tim Deegan being the last one, that was year before I was. He left there, retired earlier this year, and now it's Mike Potter's turn to retire, after over 3 decades of service as we look and as we track things. So, and we still have some folks, Tallahassee, Albany, that are here, been here longer, than the 2000 mark. But as we're looking at that, as we're tracking all that, they do a great job, obviously. But, I'm talking about the ones picking up on the antenna and the like here when I was a little kid watching, every day. Pretty much, of course, George was the one that I watched the most. George Winterland there in Jacksonville. But, there were, other time slots where meteorologists were on. You see them on. And Mike Potter, the very last one to retire of all of them here that were here 25 years ago on the air, continuously as we're looking and as we're tracking things over the years. So that's, again, I'm going to be happening on Friday on TV20, WCJB's Morning Edition there. They say farewell to Mike Potter. Congratulations to him on his retirement and dedicated service to North Central Florida. As we go ahead and broaden the view back up here, you can kind of see this cool air readings toward Lake Albany and the like there, Dougherty County. You see 49 toward Leon County and Tallahassee. And then I know we're going to have some of that rain, though. This is what we want to see. I'm about to say this to you here. Don't want too much too quick, of course. There's a small chance of some flash flooding, believe it or not, in southwest Georgia coming up as we look ahead toward the timeline, because it could be too much too quick. Don't necessarily, we want the rain more than anything here at this point. We don't want severe weather, but, if we have a little flooding, we just got to kind of take it. I mean, even have the risk of them looking here at some of the maps. It looks like it just came out even. I see here all the way through North Florida and South Georgia on that Saturday into Sunday, pretty much, everybody maybe in Marion and Flagler maybe on that rest. So, yeah, we have to watch it. Higher rain chance Saturday for sure, as you see in the 7-day here in just a moment. So, I just have to be very mindful of that, obviously, as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things here. I know we have interactiveradar.com/radar to see things when we're not on the air, but you see around New Orleans there, quite a bit of rain, and even again in our area, around Albany, we're seeing 2.5 inches on average the next 7 days. That's a lot compared to what we've seen, and we desperately need the rain very badly because we've talked about it before. We'll have all of our problems if we don't. It won't just be ones that, can get put out pretty quick. It'll be big problems if we don't get this rain. This probably isn't anywhere close to enough, but it can kind of at least it's better than nothing, obviously, here, as long as we don't get severe weather or, lightning strikes that are starting fires and the like. We could get some severe weather here and there and some lightning, but this isn't the worst pattern. It's going to be a cold rain in South Georgia, so it's not, that's more beneficial than, it is adverse, I would say, as long as we don't get too much too quick, which a few spots could. If we have a severe storm in there, the models sometimes aren't picking up stuff great on these few days out. You're not sowing too much with that, but that could always change. So it's not a guarantee it's going to be more beneficial than adverse, but right now it's leaning that way. I know we had to watch out today on that Tuesday anyway for the oils being, on the roads. They're mixing with some of that rain when it just first starts to fall. Could have to watch out for that too on, the days ahead here, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, on and off, until we get enough to kind of get all that, washed off the road, which if we get heavy earlier on, it could be pretty quick, but if it's light for a while, there could still be some lingering oils there for a while. We shall see. It's not something that we really, talk about too much around here, but that can be a concern. So you see around Stark there, looking like 1.25 inches on average next 7 days. If we get that, that would be helpful. Not drought busting, it's still, you have to be very careful, but it'd be better than nothing. I mean, this is not, look, we had 0.14 here east of Stark on that Tuesday. That's not really enough. But this could be, at least a little bit closer here to being, enough for a very, very short period of time before we need more. I mean, it's still not going to be something where, the draft's not going to be over from this by any means. But again, this is better than nothing. It's one step. We need many, but it's one step in the right direction. I know Bradford County Sheriff's Office weather stem on that Tuesday picked up 0.21 inches of rain. Again, we picked up 0.14 here east of Stark on our rain gauge. So not enough, but this is over an inch. But this is showing still not enough, but it's better than nothing here. I will take it for sure. Some areas localized spots are going to get quite a bit more, some will get less, but this is going to be a little bit more beneficial than we've been seeing here lately, a little bit more widespread as well at times here. This is a good bit of rain, so, unfortunately it is going to disrupt some of those Christmas parade plans. I've already seen some different rescheduling, some spots that had them for this weekend. Now, so to watch out for next weekend. Euromodel was showing rain next weekend. GFS wasn't showing it as much later in the day. Who knows? That's way too far out for this stuff. But not, I guarantee it's going to be clear next weekend either. But hopefully there'll be one of these weekends clear before Christmas for a parade there. One of the days there for that, on the weekends as we track things. Now, the Georgia drought here, I want to see that picture. Yeah, this is what we need to rain very badly up here. You see all that exceptional drought there still on the board. You see an extreme drought on the board here as well. The endward spots up there. This is something that's really concerning. We need that precip very badly. Now, this is what I was alluding to in terms of the college football playoff projections. I know mine. I do these ahead of the committees, so I'm not like, let's see what they put and then like changing it because of them or anything like that. And I have some pretty big differences here. Ohio State, Indiana 1 and 2. I think they had Georgia 3. I have Texas Tech 3. Georgia at 4. I think Texas Tech has just been incredible. Their one loss was, on the road, their hostile environment, and it's because their quarterback was out more, so than anything. With Baron Morton, that one game he was out there, they, couldn't quite get it done. That would be a little bit of concern. If you're without him, then maybe you have problems. But a lot of these teams that have problems without their starting quarterback, with, pretty much almost everybody, as we look here and as we track them. But, I know that Ohio State Indiana game, 1 versus 2, I mean, it's a Big Ten title game, determination. It's probably the most, meaningless in a way, 1 versus 2 game you ever see in college football. But, it's about staying healthy there. So it's about maybe determining who wins the Heisman. Is he going to be the quarterback for Ohio State or Julian Sayin, or is it going to be Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza? If one of them really stands out over the other, they can win the Heisman. The other one could end up winning the national title if they play later on in January, depending on how things work out in the bracket. Because right now, they're the 2 clear best teams. I think Texas Tech's again the 3rd best team by pretty good margin. Georgia, they had that 1 loss to Alabama. They're playing again this week. If Alabama were to win, they get the automatic slot. But Georgia would still be in the playoff. Even mine, but the committees for sure. As we look here, you see Texas A&M. I dropped them to 6th there. I know some folks, let me see what the committee had, because they just came out tonight, and I almost don't put a lot of stock in the committee rankings here anymore after what happened to FSU a couple of years ago. But okay, they have Ole Miss at 6 and Texas A&M at 7. I mean, I could have put Texas A&M lower, but I have Ole Miss here barely in because of their coaching situation. BYU's at 7 here. The committee doesn't even have them in the bracket right now, which is really unfortunate with only 1 loss. It doesn't make sense, but you see Miami, I have them in. The committee doesn't have them in. They say that even though I beat Notre Dame, they have the same amount of losses. It doesn't matter. They think Notre Dame is better, but they may very well be. But they're so equal now. It's hard to say that anymore. I had Notre Dame ahead, but not anymore, because if you have them equal, you got to go with even if it was at Miami, you kind of have to go with the head to head there at some point. If it's down to the end like it is. Ole Miss, I have them down to 10 because of their coaching situation. I had them out last week. They played really well against Mississippi State there in Starkville. So I mean, it's a situation there where, I mean, you know, you just kind of look at it there, you kind of track things, and if Alabama were to win, I'd put them out of the bracket, but the committee had them safely in at number 6. I mean, they're not even in any dispute. They moved them up after the coach, Lane Kiffin, left for LSU. Apparently, some of the other coaches will be there, but I remember they penalized FSU. They said it was because of Jordan Travis's injury 2 years ago, even though there were already, discussions about maybe having FSU out with the undefeated season earlier that day, and, really saying that FSU didn't deserve to be in even at 13-0, before the injury happened to Travis later that day, and that night there. But you see Virginia number 11, as we're looking there, as we're tracking now, that's going to depend on the ACC title game. If it's not them, winning that, Duke should not be in the playoff. No way. Absolutely not. They have 5 losses. Some people want them in, though, over James Madison, North Texas, Tulane. Of course, one of the North Texas and Tulane will get in. Committee had Tulane in, but if whoever wins North Texas, Tulane was going to get in. Both coaches are leaving for a bigger job next year, with the coach at Tulane going to Florida, John Sumrall, and the coach there, Coach Morris there at North Texas, going to Oklahoma State in 2026. Oklahoma, I have them out. The committee has them safely in, but I have them out. Alabama's right on the bubble. I have them out right now, but if they won, they would be in because of the automatic bid for winning the conference. Utah, they're not going to get in. I have them out, but I have them above Texas and Vandy. As you look here, Texas, I mean, they beat Texas A&M, but they lost to Florida, and that's just going to be something the committee can't overlook there, losing to Florida like that. I mean, it's just, honestly, the committee did not overlook Alabama losing to FSU either. I mean, in the first game by 2 touchdowns. But if Alabama wins, they're in. Just like BYU, if they win, they're in. BYU should still be in if they lose, having 2 losses to the same team, unless they lose by like 40 or 50 points. They should be in here. BYU, Alabama, I mean, if they lose, that's 3 losses. They really shouldn't be in, but they'll probably keep them in there anyway. And, maybe bump some other teams out there, based on how the bracketing set's showing up. So it's complicated as we look at things and as we track things here for sure. So that's kind of the storyline there. Let's go ahead and see a 7-day forecast now. 5% chance of rain on that Wednesday, 30% on that Thursday, 50% on that Friday, 60% on Saturday, Sunday here. You can see definitely going up, so make sure you have that rain gear ready if thunder roars, go indoors. Not a guarantee that with these temperatures being a little cool with this, but could even get a rogue severe storm. It's too early to know one way or the other this far out. Not seeing, high res model guidance yet. So we thought to have more of that threat on Tuesday, and even last Wednesday. Didn't happen either time. We did have a warning yesterday, Tuesday there, Outdoor Gulf County, a tornado warning, but it didn't move into our covered area, as we were looking there. But you see these temperatures kind of cool. Look at next Tuesday morning, down in the 30s. Maybe have some frost around. We shall see in some of these backyards. So depending on the wind and the like, but we'll have to see how that, sets up. You see kind of getting more toward average here. It's pretty cool. I mean, as you look at some of these readings here on this Wednesday, I mean, that's a cool day. And, a little cooler than average, really. Especially what we've been seeing lately. We're down to 49 here, east of Stark right now in the rural area. But you see 67 on Thursday, 75 on Friday there, 68 on Saturday, 65 on Sunday, 64 Monday there. So, yeah, it's going to be kind of cool at times, and, this can help preclude a severe threat at times. We're going to have the rain. We're going to need the rain. Unfortunately, it will disrupt some holiday plans here, Christmas, parade plans and the like. That is a problem, but we got to have this rain. We want it without severe weather. We want it without flash flooding. This, unfortunately, does, the highest chances on the weekend. Could impact that Jags game on Sunday. We'll have to see how the field conditions are and see if, I'm not sure if they'll tarp that field off, and then, hope for the best for the game time. There is a chance it could clear out before game time. The models are also showing it lingering in the game time, and that could impact the passing game, with, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence and Daniel Jones for the Colts, and then the Jaguars kicker there, Cam Little. It could impact his, a kick in there, as well there. The wind, rain, he's been just incredible on the road. indoors and the like. But out, Jacksonville has, it's been a point when the weather hadn't been as good, has been a little bit more problematic there. Now the weather ended up being a little bit better than we were thinking last week at this time for Nashville. It ended up being sunny, but it was cool and kind of windy. That issue with the long snapper, so they had to, for a while there with injuries, so they had to kind of make some changes there for a bit, and that precluded them kind of longer field goal before they got a penalty and went a little shorter. Jackson having a great year there. Florida State not so great in football. Those are both over, it would seem. Bradford had a great year, but unfortunately it did come to an end there in the high school football playoffs last Friday night there. But some of the local other teams, still in there like bowls and the like there as we look toward the region. I think other schools there, Buchholz there out of Gainesville, they're still in as well. So, some different schools. There's more. I mean, I'm not listing all of them. There's quite a few more than what I'm saying. But, as we're looking and as we're tracking things, just always important to keep an eye on the overall situation here. And again, we will have the rain, which is unfortunate toward the weekend there, as we're giving you guys the very latest. But we do need it very, very badly. So you have to take the good with the bad here in that regard. Again, as we look here and as we track things, and how we'll be continuing to watch things here as we look ahead in toward that timeline. So again, just trying to keep you guys up to date here. Just checking some different things, obviously. We're just going to be keeping you guys informed on the overall picture. Again, 30s by Tuesday morning next week there. That's going to be chilly. Bundle up for that. You see a little bit below average there. I mean, the averages are for today, the 3rd here of December 2025. It's crazy to think about. 2 years ago today, I was anxiously awaiting those college football playoff rankings. And FSU, well, they didn't get in. And the FSU football team has sadly not won a road game since. As we go ahead and look here again, you see 75 Friday. That could indicate if, we had a stronger storm. Maybe it's Friday, and that could be an issue for some, football game. We'll see, because, that would be when you theoretically have more instability before we had a little bit of that cool rain come in here. But to be more concentrated at points, especially late Saturday and early Sunday, maybe overnight Saturday and early Sunday could be where you have some of the highest concentrations of the rainfall here. So at least we're not talking about, ice or anything like that. Nothing like that around here. That's good news. But, we are seeing those high rain chances. We need the rain very badly. So, just got to, again, take the good there with the bad. That's kind of storyline right now. I thank you so much for tuning in. I'm meteorologist TC Cloud here in the Weather Center. Thanks so much for staying up late. It's always important to see the latest model guidance here, Unfortunately, we still do have, the fire concerns around burn ban still for Bradford County and other areas in the region. So watch out, in that regard there. I know we've been watching out for some rip current threats here. There was a rip current statement out, and let me see if it still is out. Okay, they haven't dropped it yet, but there was one out for Tuesday for some of the Big Bend beaches there. So always important to watch out there when you have, like the storms coming through. That's something that's, a little bit more concerning when you have that wind around as well. I know you see these readings here. Used to start more rural here. We're down to 49 degrees. There's always a big difference, in certain setups between, like, where we're at. And we're not far away from downtown Stark and the city itself, and at the sheriff's office, they're at 56 degrees right now. So it's just a big difference here. I mean, you have a low in your graphic, and it's kind of, literally a couple miles, it's going to be, we're at a 7-degree differential right now. Sometimes it could be 10-degree differential. So, 56 right there in the word Stark by the courthouse at the sheriff's office. But we're at 49 here in rural east, Bradford County, not too far from the golf and country club. So, again, that's kind of the storyline there as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. Just trying to make sure there's nothing else to really talk about here. I think that covers it for now. Again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate everybody trusting me here in toward the overall picture here. Watching things in toward the Weather Center. I'm just checking to see if there's anything else we need to talk about here. I think that's it. I think we pretty much covered everything here. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you trusting me. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe. Again, we'll start having some rain come in later on again in the week. We need it, though, so make sure you're ready for that. Be careful on the roads. You know, obviously have his lights on when those, you know, showers are coming in there. Just be, you know, extra careful. We had some of that on that Tuesday. We'll have more later on. So, not something we've been used to talking about lately. Kind of like, you know, winter weather up north. They've had it lately. Hadn't had it in a while. Just got to be prepared, you know, when we have those, you know, showers, those storms around. Just always, you know, leave plenty of distance between you and the car in front of you. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking them here. They're just trying to give you guys the very latest on the overall picture. So, just always important to do all that here for you. I know it's a little bit of southern Missouri, some freezing fog. We're not seeing freezing temperatures, no freezing fog here, so that is good news as we look at as we track things here toward our local area. It's just always kind of, you know, important to watch things here. May have a little bit of fog this morning or as we look ahead tomorrow morning, but not necessarily in all our different zones here as we look ahead and toward the timeline. So we'll be watching out for that here for you, though. So, but not something that, you know, is showing up really prevalent in the modeling at this point in time here as we look at things and as we track things. But just stay safe out there. Have a great night. Thanks for tuning in and trusting me.